Selections are absolutely essential for anyone using Photoshop. Let's start with the first of two selection tools that we'll cover in this video. The rectangular marquee tool, and you'll see the letter M on your keyboard will jump you to that tool if you're a keyboard shortcut fanatic like I am. With the rectangular marquee tool, I'm going to start by clicking and dragging over this little sign that says curb your dog. I'd love to use this image as a background for what we're going to do, but the sign is distracting. So let's use the all-powerful Edit, Fill, Content Aware, and click OK, and magically it's gone. In fact, to deselect, there are several different ways. I can click away to deselect. I can also choose Select, Reselect if for some reason I wanted that selection back. And I can choose Select, Deselect. Finally, I'll reselect one more time and use my shortcut because that's the way I roll. Control D or Command D will deselect. And that's easy to remember because the word deselect starts with D, so it's a good mnemonic device. The next selection I want to make is I want to pop up some little bubbles of penguins here. Imagine you're creating a silly advertisement. So I'm going to open Penguin 2, and I'll get ready and double-click and open Penguin 1 from Mini Bridge. I'll double-click to collapse Mini Bridge and hit Command 0 or Control 0 to fit in window. Now, as with any tool in Photoshop, every tool, with the exception of the Move tool and the Zoom tool, have nested or hidden tools underneath. You can click and hold and count to 2 to see those tools, or you can right-click. I'm going to switch to the elliptical marquee tool. And I find when most people first try to make an elliptical selection, they start in the wrong spot. If you want to start with the penguin's head, a lot of people will go roughly to the middle and then drag. But you need to imagine as if this circle had an upper left corner. That is the position where you start. Since I let go, I could easily get in the middle and drag to a new spot, but I cut off the beak. So one click outside of any selection area deselects. And I'm going to imagine a corner to a larger circle way up here. So I will click and drag, and there I did a much better job of selecting the penguin's head. If I don't want to include the purse that's in the background, I can simply use my left arrow key and down arrow keys to nudge this until I'm happy with it. I often don't drag to nudge in position because, quite frankly, I have too much caffeine and it might be a little shaky. Nudging can be done individually with your up arrow, down arrow, left and right arrow keys, or a power user trick to make bigger nudges, hold down your Shift key and hit your up and down, right and left arrows. That was with the Shift key. Without, there we go. And I'm going to choose Edit Copy. I'll go to the Tribeca image, Edit, Paste. And now this penguin is on its own layer. And to have good Photoshop habits, I'll name this Penguin 1. When you name a layer, it is important to double-click in the middle of the name. Don't aim for the right, because that may bring up layer style, or the left, the thumbnail. That will also bring up layer style. Aim for dead center of the layer name. Now I'll go back to Penguin 2, hit Control 0 or Command 0 to fit in window. And this time, I'll use a different trick. If I'm more comfortable estimating the center of an object I'd like to select, on both the elliptical and the rectangular marquee tool, you can hold down Alt or Option and click and drag to go from center out. In this case, I'm cutting it a little bit off the photo, so I'll let go of my mouse, then let go of Alt or Option, and nudge it over with my arrow keys or up with my arrow keys. Or I could simply start over. I'll go further up to the left, click and drag to make a selection from upper left, Or estimate a different center point and hold down Alt-Option and drag from the center out. Let go, and I can move this into a better position. Edit, copy, come over to my Tribeca image, edit, paste. And to move the penguin, I need to switch to my Move tool because that penguin is now on their own layer. I'll double-click in the middle of layer 1 and name it Penguin 2. I'll click back on Penguin 1 and move this guy to the upper left. Now in both cases, I didn't attempt to keep a perfect circle. Let me show you that. I'll come back to Penguin 1. I'll go to my elliptical marquee tool and click away to deselect. And this time I'll hold down Shift to keep a perfect circle, letting go of my mouse first, then my Shift key. And before I copy this one, I'm going to go to Image, Image Size, and make this smaller. I'll make the width 2 inches. Then I'll make my selection with the Shift key. Perfect. Edit, copy, click on the Tribeca image, edit, paste. And I'm going to paste several times. They're all landing directly on top of one another. So if I switch to the Move tool, I can move the first one and name this Tiny Bird. I'll click the next layer, move that, and name it Tiny Bird, leaving the numbers that Photoshop automatically gave me. And finally, click on this layer, move this guy, and it'll be our first Tiny Bird. To finish up, I'm going to select all the layers. So I'll click once on the first penguin layer, Shift-click on the last penguin layer, and if I want to move them as a unit, I can actually just use my arrow keys on my keyboard to nudge them. I hope you've enjoyed this tour of the rectangular selection tool, the elliptical selection tool, and the tips along with those tools. Remember, Shift keeps a perfect square or perfect circle. Once you've let go of a selection, your arrow keys will nudge up, down, left, and right. Shift and your arrow keys will nudge in larger increments, 10 pixels at a time instead of 1 pixel at a time. And my favorite deselect shortcut is Control-D or Command-D.